Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is District 3's community meeting, and I'm sure there are a whole host of different issues that you would like to discuss, and we want to make sure we give you an opportunity to do that. We've had a lot of good rain lately, and certainly California and Southern California needs that. All right? All right. Let's see, how are we going to roll today? I think it may be appropriate before we get started on the formal program to introduce the president of Pacific Oaks College to all of you. And the reason why this is a particularly nice, fun, interesting moment for me is because when I met this person, she was thinking about whether or not they would actually purchase this campus because there were some challenges. And she smartly made the right decision, and it's basically public knowledge that they paid approximately $22 million for this whole campus. And should True Value and Spartan Final ever decide to leave, I'm hoping that Pacific Oaks College would expand there as well. Now, why do I say that? Because it has a national reputation in early childhood development. But I'd like to just welcome the president of Pacific Oaks College and ask her to share a few words with us this evening, Dr. Patricia Brin.
Thank you, John, and thank you for the rain. We certainly did need it. It was all John's doing, as you all know. I'm so happy to see you all here. This is actually the second time I've spoken with you. The last time I told you about a new program that we had in advocacy and social justice. And it was just about to launch last fall when we spoke. But that program has really taken off, and I have a lot of you folks to thank for it. Where are you, Donald? Dr. Grant, to give you a little bit of an update on that program. And he's a way better speaker than I am. So here you go, Donald, and thank you again for coming.
30 seconds. Thank you, Dr. Brain. Thank you all very much. I'm not going to take too much time up from you, but for those of you who don't know who Pacific Oaks is, we are an institution driven on human services professions and providing cultural lenses and equity and all sorts of things for the community. This new degree program is one of our very mission-driven degrees where we're really teaching people how to utilize the tools of advocacy and work for social justice. I just wanted to let you all know.
This one's working.
Thank you very much. As it is in our tradition, and I do take a little bit of flack occasionally for doing this, we always start our community meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to introduce the Blair High School Junior ROTC, led by First Sergeant Irving Turner. Irving, are you here with us? All right, always faithful. So I hope I have this right. Sergeant Major Melanie Cabrera, Denisa Herrera, Maria Adorno, Adriana Rivas, Johanna del Pilar Tolosa, Jesus Espinosa, Dinora Lopez, Edrai Pliego, please post colors. Please stand.
Right, left, color guard,
I'd ask Mike Warner, the former president of the Sister Cities organization, to come forward. Oops, sorry. Sorry.
Everyone, place your hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Right, face. Forward, march. Left, left, right. Left, left, right.
Please give a round of applause to the junior ROTC at Blair High School. Now I would like to invite, and by the way, Melanie whispered in my ear very strongly, "I'm not finished." I'd like to ask the pastor of Community Bible Church, Gene Birch, to come forward and lead us in an opening prayer.
Thank you, John. I'm going to stand here so I don't drop the mic. Good evening. Well, a couple things happened as I came in the room that you probably don't necessarily want to happen to a pastor. One of those things is that John said you were going to pray, and I looked and saw where he was standing, and it resembles a pulpit. So when something resembles a pulpit, pastor really wants to preach. And the other thing tonight is that he then hugged me and said, "Be yourself and do what you do." So you tell John if there's a problem with what I do after it's over. All right? Okay. Community meeting. I looked up the word community because I wanted to really understand, if we understand, what it means to come together as community. And a great definition of community is a group of any size whose members reside in a specific locality, sharing common characteristics or interests, cultures, and historical heritage. And if that's what a community is, and if that's the reason that we've gathered tonight, I would say to you that we probably have more in common than not. And so as a pastor who has been given the opportunity to do what she would like to do, I would like to do this. I'd like for you to look around where you're sitting and look around, turn around the back of you and see if you know any of these people. Because we're community. We are the community. And do you really know the people that live in the community? And if you're sitting near somebody that you really don't know, I want you just to reach over and say hi to them or kind of shake their hand. Yeah, and yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. That's pretty good, because now you're going to leave this community meeting being attached to or feeling better about someone else who actually lives in our community. And I want you to try to remember that person's face. So now let us pray. Dear Lord, tonight on behalf of the people of Pasadena, we pray to you who is the God of peace, the God of mercy, the God of reconciliation, the God of hope, and above all, the God of love. And it is during this time as our nation and even our community faces some of our greatest challenges that we must not lose hope. For hope finds its greatest demonstration when our endurance is being tested. Our hope is not based on optimism, but the blessed assurance that this nation under God and even our community finds our destiny rooted in God's love. Lord, we have been often made aware of the importance of touching lives and building community. And so tonight we pray that you would help us to understand and embrace your greatest commandment, to love God and our neighbors as we love ourselves, being reminded through the scriptures that our neighbors are all of those that we come in contact with, and to know that touching lives finds its demonstration through love, and that building our community is sometimes transforming one life at a time. We pray that you would help us to fulfill the law of love, which is the most fundamental trait of human relationships. May tonight give us an opportunity to listen with a desire to hear and even to understand, knowing that your amazing grace is for every race. We pray that you would give us peace in this city as we value and protect all human life while caring always for the least of these. In Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. We'll follow the program. I'd like to invite, first we have a lot of ground to cover tonight, and so I'm going to try to move the program rather quickly so we will in fact get to everything that is on the program and a little bit more. Our last community meeting took place in December, so you can imagine there is a lot that has transpired since our last community meeting. So the next person I'd like to come up and briefly talk to you about a very interesting subject is Sue Mossman, longtime Executive Director of Pasadena Heritage. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Vice Mayor, for inviting me to come and speak tonight. I bring you all greetings from Pasadena Heritage, starting its 41st year as a nonprofit in Pasadena. And if you don't know about our organization, we are here to preserve and protect and educate about historic resources, historic buildings and places throughout the city of Pasadena. And we do that in a whole variety of ways, but in my 3 minutes, I won't take time to go through those, but I invite you to pick up some materials on the back table if you're interested, our calendar of events for the year and all the things we're doing. I came particularly tonight to say that Pasadena Heritage is eager to reach out better across the community to hear what people think and what they care about, particularly related to the historic places in their hearts and on their streets and in their neighborhoods, and also to help bring messages from the community into the city's planning process to help inform and encourage the good work that the city's planning staff is doing to address our concerns related to the built environment and the things that we see going on around us. So to be very specific, next week on Wednesday night, we are holding a community meeting called Participate Pasadena, and we've chosen 2 topics. One is the just launched specific plan effort, which will reach across the city and touch on 8 specific districts. We want to help to educate and encourage people to get involved and come out and talk about what you want if you live in or near a specific plan area. And the second topic is mansionization, as we see large new homes being developed in our neighborhoods or remodels on steroids in our neighborhoods. We're concerned about losing the history and integrity of our neighborhoods, and the city has been working hard on that as well and is just about to take a look at new standards for single-family development in Pasadena. We care a lot about that at Pasadena Heritage. We imagine that you do too. We'd like to get to know better what your thoughts and feelings are, so please join us next Wednesday. Get involved in the city's ongoing process on these issues. We would love to hear from you. You have wonderful historic places in your district, and we care about those and want to help you preserve them. Thank you very much for welcoming me.
All right, Sue, you get an A+ because it is rare that someone follows instructions. Thank you. Less than 3 minutes. Okay. All right, now I'd like to tee up a conversation that the city is having presently about the northeast corner of Orange Grove in Fair Oaks. What are we going to do on that site as a city? My hope, and I hope is the same hope of all of my colleagues and staff, is that whatever development that takes place on that corner where Church's Chicken is currently located, and also where First AME used to be located, Brown Memorial AME used to be located, where I was baptized, bad boy baptized. Anyway, what is the right development for that? Many of you know that north of that little area is Heritage Square 1, and that's approximately 69 units of affordable housing. So the question is, what kind of housing do we want for that area, which I refer to as Heritage Square 2? So most of you, if not all of you, have a survey on your seat. It looks something like this. And so in an effort to provide meaningful feedback to me, or feed forward to me and my colleagues on the city council, I'm asking that you would take the time during this meeting and fill out the form. It's really basic, but it would be helpful information, and there's an opportunity at the end, question number 2, just for you to share your thoughts if we have not captured an area of interest to you in the 9 questions that came before. So I really hope that all of you would take the time and fill out this particular questionnaire. It'll be very helpful. In thinking this through a bit, I thought about sharing a video. It's only a 7-minute video, and I hope that it's ready to be teed up. Are we ready for the video? That was like a cue for somebody to move.
Welcome to my house. This is I eat for my breakfast, and this is Daddy and Jeremiah. That's from my learning books. My mommy have a nice kitchen, and she can cook chicken and rice and cereal and oatmeal. This is my room. They can only play toys. It's so comfy. This is Mom and Dad's room. That's Mommy's candle. You blow, and it was done for bedtime.
The groundbreaking for us, people that have come through being homeless and landing into a place like this, it's a new beginning for all of us. It gives us that hope that there is people out there that really care for people that go through stuff like that. When we found out that there was programs that do this, well, when we get to where we need to get to, we want to give and help. Because building more of this really gives human beings a new beginning.
Permanent supportive housing is what we utilize to address homelessness. It's the one measure that really ends homelessness. If we put a homeless person, if a person enters into a shelter, they're still homeless. But if they enter into permanent housing, then they're not homeless anymore.
It's part of a housing first process where people have a safe place. They have a place where they can stay, where they can build a foundation that they can grow from. Our goal here is basically to find out what the goals of the families are. What are the goals of the people that are going to live here?
All the programs in Union Station use the service collaborative plans. This helps give us a way of tracking, also helps the residents to be able to plan what it is that they want to do in order for us to assist them to get to that point.
Because we're supportive services, we handle things on a day-to-day basis. So when they come to us and maybe someone's in crisis, we try to get them the necessary help in mental health, connect them with services in that way. It's just basically what do they need on a daily basis.
I have 2 care coordinators on my staff. They provide all kinds of services, sometimes transportation to a doctor's appointment, sometimes just support therapy.
It's very important on permanent supportive housing projects that the tenants would all be screened, and this means they're screened for their credit history, also their criminal background checks are made.
Despite some of the stereotypes, affordable housing really doesn't impact crime. It really doesn't erode the quality of life in the neighborhood. They're highly regulated, they're highly monitored.
The safety level is actually enhanced because we're taking people from off the street and putting them into a situation that's stable irregardless of their addiction or their mental health issues. And then it allows us to really start working with those individuals in order to make them people who can contribute to the neighborhood itself.
Property manager is very important. They maintain the property, they execute leases, they enforce house rules.
They regulate to the best of their ability the conduct and the goings and comings of those clients. So it really is a seamless network behind the scenes through housing, through the police department, through the property manager, to the client, and moreover, to the neighborhood.
Even with the parking reductions on these properties, the permanent supportive housing projects in Pasadena have not had an adverse effect on parking or traffic. Other mobility options are used: biking, taking public transportation, walking.
Local businesses really don't feel an impact from permanent supportive housing for homeless people. If there is an impact, it's a positive one in that there are fewer people on the street, fewer people in doorways, fewer people sleeping on sidewalks and under bridges.
The permanent supportive housing has been an uplift for property values. Projects are well maintained, well designed. They fit very well into a community, and I think that makes all the difference in the world. Property values continue to rise, and they will continue to rise in Pasadena.
One of the things we're particularly proud of here in Pasadena is that we've seen a 54% drop in homelessness since 2009. It's a really interesting time in homeless services in that with the passage of Proposition H and Triple H, that we see dollars coming in, which is really important for us to actually get at combating and ending homelessness. But the dollars alone are not going to cure this. Housing has to go somewhere, and so we together have to band together and say, yes, I'm willing to have in my neighborhood a residential site so that people can come in and get off the street, and that's going to take a collective effort on all of our parts.
I supported the development of permanent supportive housing because it fills such a very important need. My experience with Marv's Place, when the neighborhood saw the renderings and they understood the idea of families living together, they began to come on board, was so positive. I would love to see another permanent supportive housing in my district or in the city at large. It really hits the sweet spot of helping homeless people, families, individuals move into a successful lifestyle.
To have a place that you're safe, you're comfortable, you're growing, mentally and physically, you get new thoughts and new plans and new ideas.
Having a foundation, being able to, have a place to start to get back into normalcy, feeling like we can continue to the next step.
And just the quality of life, the value of life, and just, not being limited anymore.
I'm very grateful to have it. I have a place to live, I have a place to go into, feel safe.
We're human, and we go through stuff. And just having a place like this, it was like, wow. When we finally found ground here, we felt straight at home. We love it so much that we are actually getting involved in the communities. I want to give back.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that video. That's representative of the fine work that the city of Pasadena is engaged in. And the director of housing happens to be here with us, Bill Wong. Bill? Before I ask the next speaker to come up, I'd just like to acknowledge the life of an educator by the name of Dr. Don McAlpin. Don McAlpin was a counselor at Blair High School, and he served in the Pasadena Unified School District for over 40 years. And he was my counselor when I was a student at Blair. I would have brought this to your attention sooner, but we haven't had a community meeting until now. The last community meeting, as I said, was in December. So Don McAlpin was hell-bent on making sure that all children, and particularly African-American children, had an opportunity for college. And one of the super barriers for some going to college is finances. So Don made sure that this little boy in front of you, from a family of 10, 12 of us living in a 2-bedroom house, had adequate money to go to the University of Southern California. And I would be remiss if I didn't pay tribute to this particular man who happens to be Caucasian, named Don McAlpin. And his wife, Judy Taylor, they dated secretly while I was at Blair, but I'm not gonna go into that. But anyway, just several years of his passing, Judy, who taught me, I think, algebra or something like that, they married, and they were an extraordinary love couple. And so I just pay tribute to a wonderful Pasadenean, a wonderful teacher in the Pasadena Unified School District, and we have good people like this now in the Pasadena Unified School District, Dr. Don McAlpin. So we're going to modify the program just briefly because one of our presenters is not really feeling well, and I know some of you may not be feeling well and you want to get home and rest. So we're going to speed forward as best we can. One of the things I want to do is provide an update of all of the developments in District 3, and I want you to be engaged in what occurs in our district. Particularly since we have some of the key leadership in the city of Pasadena here, and I'm going to introduce some of them now and then some later, like Steve Mermel, our city manager. Would you give him a round of applause? Now, he already knows that when I introduce him, it's a setup. I'm just telling you, it's a setup. We need $3 million for the pool at Robinson Park. We need $3 million. And we're not going to get that without all of you pressing hard. Now, why is that? Because there are limited dollars. And there are needs all across every district in the city of Pasadena. I would be remiss again if I didn't advocate for the folks who put me in this position. I need the $3 million, and I need you to help me convince city government to get us that $3 million to build that pool at Robinson Park. Because in my view, it makes little sense to have a brand new building without a pool for those children to enjoy. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to introduce one of the smartest planners in California, holding him to this. His name is David Reyes. He's a developer. He's head of planning and development for the city of Pasadena, and he wants to be a developer when he retires.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Kennedy. And I appreciate going out of order. I also like to thank Jana West for all of her. Behind the scenes, setting this up is not easy. So, Jana, good job, honestly. So my name is David Reyes. I've been with the city about 6 years. I've come from other planning departments in Southern California, Malibu, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills. And what do those all have in common? So very sophisticated, involved citizenry. When I was offered a job here at a lower level, I thought it would be a little bit easier than those cities I had come from. Wrong. 110%. This is the most challenging and rewarding community to ever work for and be involved in because of the citizens here. And I'm not just saying that, I'm telling you my job is hard. But the citizens, when they speak, you need to listen because what you guys say is important and you guys actually know your community. So we are very cognizant of that. And there's more process here in Pasadena to involve everyone, the community. Pastor Birch, thank you for your words about community. It's very important here, not only here in this district, but also throughout the city. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some developments that are going on, also some specific topics, including marijuana, cannabis regulations that are being proposed. So I am the one that was not feeling quite 100%, so I appreciate you bearing with me. So actually, I'm going to start with the commercial cannabis regulations that the City Council has agreed to put on the ballot in June of this year for the voters of Pasadena to take action on. So as most of you know, marijuana is legal in the state of California. There was a vote of the people, commonly known as IUMA, the Adult Use of Medical Marijuana Act, and that vote also had some language in the state law that allowed each city to develop regulations on their own, meaning they could have a prohibition against marijuana entirely, or they can allow it with certain prohibitions and regulations and conditions. The city of Pasadena currently has 11 illegal operators. We've shut down about 7 of them. They sort of pop up. This is not an easy issue to deal with because we know that they're well funded. It's an all cash business. And this is not about passing judgment on whether people want to use marijuana or not. It's about realizing that we need to be responsible for the community. So what our department and the city council recommended to put before the voters was very thoughtful regulations that would allow some dispensaries in the city, but also to protect the residents in any district where a dispensary might operate. So the proposal would allow approximately 5 or 6 dispensaries in the city with some distance separation requirements, meaning that you have to be separated from a residential district or neighborhood by 600 feet. There's also regulations that would allow and require certain operators, if they're approved, to demonstrate that they actually will be responsible developers. So there will be a public process for, if the voters approve this, there will be a public process for any operator to actually operate before they begin operating legally. So our goal is to eliminate illegal operators, to protect the residents of the city, but also to allow responsible cannabis regulators, operators I should say, to have a business in the city where residents can, if they so choose, go to a business that actually is legal and it doesn't feel like you're walking into a seedy operation, if you will. I apologize, one moment. In addition to the regulations, we're looking at having taxes so that those operators, any impacts that they might cause, the taxes generated from those users could be used to go back into the community in terms of enforcement and regulations and making sure that they're not having an impact. The 11 operators that we have right now have seen some impacts in neighborhoods with respect to loitering and some other sort of secondary effects, as we call them. But for the most part, we've not seen any major crime around those operators. And so June 5th is the date that the voters will have a chance to sort of decide whether or not they want to have cannabis regulations in the city. Any questions on that? I know there's not an opportunity. I'm going to just move forward quickly. We have some development that actually I wanted to talk about that's actually coming to this district. Some large development and some small development, both mixed use and residential. So Parsons, across the street, also referred to as the Lincoln Project. This is a very large project, 200,000 square feet of commercial uses with 400 residential units that we anticipate breaking ground in April, which is next month. So this is a 4-year process in terms of the planning, the multiple community meetings, planning commission meetings, and city council meetings. There's a development agreement associated with the project that would require not only additional art fees, but actually Councilmember Kennedy required, and the applicant agreed with the development agreement to ensure that there would be local hire practices as well as other outreach opportunities for local residents to be involved, not only through the development process, but later on. This is very important for the money that that Vice Mayor Kennedy was asking about with respect to the pool, because this pays residential impact fees. When development comes into the city, there's residential impact fees charged on all new residences, and that goes directly back to parks and or new parks and or improvement of existing parks. So this is an important aspect of the ask by Vice Mayor Kennedy with respect to the pool.
Sir, are you saying you're going to commit the $3 million for me?
This is a tough crowd, and Vice Mayor Kennedy, this is something that is really important. So with respect to the city's, one of the great things about this city, and having worked in Santa Monica, I think Santa Monica tries to pattern what we do here. There's an inclusionary housing requirement that we have here. So any new development over 10 units has to provide at least 15% affordable. And they can do that on-site, or they can do that off-site, or they can pay an inclusionary fee. In this case, the applicant is proposing to provide these units off-site. So there will be an off-site component that's affordable for families associated with this project that the City Council approved on Monday night. And that's at the corner of Orange Grove and Lincoln, and it was a former gas station. So this is a blighted corner that will be redeveloped with affordable family units, and we're really excited about that. So one of the things that's very important for us is that new development comes in, pays residential impact fees, and also supports affordable housing in the city. Another project that is in the works is a conditional use permit. This is a process that is very public, and it's actually, this is only 55 units, but it's really important to us because we have a lot of infill development in the city, especially in the central district area of the city where there's underutilized properties that can actually be redeveloped without impact to surrounding properties. This is 55 units, mixed use, and it's actually 2 projects that are being proposed. One on the north side that's 86 units, and the south side is 55 units, and we're excited about the prospect of this coming in because it's going to actually eliminate some of the vacant properties we have in the city, and also pay for not only inclusionary housing, but also the residential impact fees that go to parks. So this is a project that's very early on. This is the Del Taco site, as we call it. It's very early on, preliminary consultation completed, 73 units, 128 units, 128,000 square feet of office space. It's important to us because we don't have a lot of new office being proposed in the city right now. If this project goes forward, it would create new office space that could create new jobs in the city. .127 North Madison is a project that is actually further along than others that I've talked about. This is a project that would, again, the numbers are up here, but what we're talking about, this is only 4 very low-income units on site. 48 units are proposed total. Those 4 very low incomes would be spread throughout the project and would be available for the life of the project to low-income residents. So one of the things that's really important, about what I do. I'm not a developer, but I'm charged with making sure that projects actually comply with existing regulations. So right now, the city has a 15% inclusionary. So this satisfies that. So it's only 4. It does sound like very minimal, but this is a developer giving. The developer is required to comply with existing rules and regulations. I know that Bill from our housing department is looking at raising the inclusionary requirement. If that goes forward, then there would be more, but this is what's required right now. And it is a lot more, 4 more than most cities surrounding us. So this is not a state requirement. This is what Pasadena does. And I think it's very important that we continue to look at whether 15% is the right number or not. So this is a project that's approved through the planning process. A building permit would likely be issued in the next several months. This is on-site relocation. We're talking about a smaller project than the previous ones, but I think that it's also important to understand that development in the city, whether big or large, is compatible with existing development. So I'm moving on to slide 9. What you're seeing is a lot of development in the district. There was a statement by the speaker in the video that you saw that said property values continue to rise here. It's true, they do. So we're seeing a lot of development right now because it's actually profitable for developers to do that. It's important that the city makes sure that all of those projects comply with whatever regulations we have in place and don't impact the existing neighborhoods. So this is 6 stories, mixed use. This is actually age restricted, so this is for seniors. You can age in place as the term goes, so that we're providing for an opportunity for seniors to stay in the city and not move out. This is a project, 6 stories. It's actually 59 residential units. You see 5 very low income associated with this project. And this is through the planning process already. No development permit in terms of building has been submitted to the city just yet. What you're seeing here is another, I think you're seeing a theme here. What you're seeing is a lot of residential projects with mixed use at the ground floor. And they vary in size between 40 units and 70 units because that's what the existing pattern allows for development with respect to the sort of infill opportunities that we have. So this is a project that says 12 moderate income. This is fantastic for us because we don't get a lot of projects that come in with the moderate income level. This is sort of the workforce housing idea. So this is, they have to provide more. It's 12 versus the 4 very low that we saw before. And this is, I think, something that we need to move towards thinking about in the future as we think about the jobs housing balance. 12 moderate income units are really important. 4 very low, you start doing the math, and I think it's really important that we consider this could potentially provide 12 units for families in the city. This is a smaller project at Madison, 3-story, 35 residential, City of Gardens. So this basically complies with all of our standards. Again, they have not decided whether they're going to pay an in lieu fee or provide opportunity on site for affordable. But 35 residential units, again, this is sort of the scale that we're seeing in the city. I believe this is the last one, so I want to make sure that I will speed up. Thank you, Jasmine. 42 units, 3 very low income, again, mixed use of the ground floor, residential above. What you're seeing with the architecture, again, is the goal is to be compatible with existing built environment. So you have many, many projects that are coming throughout the city, but a lot in this district, because this is an important district for folks to be in, because it's surrounded by not only commercial opportunities, jobs, but also schools. This is actually one of the very few commercial projects that's going on right now. This is under construction. It's Alexandria Real Estate Headquarters, Class A office, 82,000 square feet. This is a local business that employs over 200 people in the city. This is next to City Hall across the way. Finally, this is a residential project next to there's a very nice, most of you may know this, there's an historic building to the left of it. And it's referred to by a lot of different names, but it looks like a gingerbread house. So this is a project that if you see the step back here, that was designed to make sure that it didn't impact the existing residential project to the left, which is a historic resource. Smaller project, 9 units. So again, you have a variety of projects coming to the district, but what you're seeing is mostly residential with commercial to ground floor, very few straight commercial projects. 635 East Union is 4 stories, 38 units, ground floor retail, 1 level subterranean parking. Approved, but no building permits issued just yet. This is a project that we refer to as Picasso Apartments, but it's been through all of the design review process. This is actually the Gorge project next to Marston's. So there's a big drop off if you know the area, right over the train tracks. This is a project that would be developed sort of next to it and through it. Straight residential, no commercial. At 711 East Walnut, this is concept design approved, meaning it's already approved through the planning process, which are all public hearings. Again, mixed use, ground floor commercial retail with 115 units. This is at Fair Oaks, 130 to 140. No building permits submitted just yet, but this is going to go over an existing building. And it's hard to see here, but this is an historic building here. This gets built over it. I think we worked diligently with Pasadena Heritage to make sure that there wasn't an impact to those resources, and then it blends in with the existing built environment with respect to the size, scale, and massing. Project just came in. This is at 120 North Oakland. It's only 3 units, but we wanted to share that as well. Fuller Seminary is a project that is ongoing. Many of you may have heard about this project. This is Fuller Seminary and Carmel Development Company. It's kind of on hold right now. They're looking to amend their master plan because Fuller Seminary is selling off a lot of their properties. They no longer need all of the space that they once thought that they did. A lot of their classrooms are now online. So they're looking to sell off some of their property and basically shrink down. This is next to Vallarta. So this is basically a recycling center. The state requires that each large supermarket provide a recycling center with a certain radius. So this is a CUP that we're working on to establish an appropriate recycling center that doesn't have impacts, and it's very difficult to do that. Those of you that are familiar with this process know that this is a small collection facility, meaning that there's not the huge recycling on site. It's just more of a collections facility. So there will be public hearings on this if those of you that are interested. We have a lot of religious facilities in the city, many in this district, and everyone that comes in that wants to establish new or amend their existing operations have to submit a conditional use permit to the city. So this is the Sri Lanka American Buddha Temple that's underway right now. I'm going to quickly move through some of these. I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
So thank you for giving a round of applause to one of our esteemed executives in the city of Pasadena, David Reyes. David, thank you for being here. Appreciate that very much. Okay. Following the program, I'm not sure if I appropriately said thank you to all of you for being here tonight. So let me back up a minute and just say thank you for being here. The diversity of the city of Pasadena is represented in the House, and I really appreciate looking at all of you. And I don't know if you appreciate looking at me, but I appreciate looking at you. And you all look wonderful because you represent the mix, the beautiful mix of Pasadena. So thank you again for being here. At this time, I'd like to introduce our police chief, who will share with us some updates about crime figures in District 3. And I know that there's some specific questions about a shooting that took place at the 1300 block of Los Robles near Prescott. So the chief is always gracious to come to our community meetings, and I really appreciate his presence, sharing with the community. So I'd welcome Police Chief Phil Sanchez.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's always a privilege to speak to our community. I'm going to walk around a little bit so that I can try to engage everybody as well. I'd also like to recognize Mr. Ramirez as one of our Gold Star families. Would you please stand up, please, sir? Please, a round of applause. His son was killed in combat not long ago and is memorialized on the Enduring Heroes, which is right at over at Orange Grove and Colorado. So again, sir, thank you for your service. Thank you for your son's service. In general, crime is moderate in your district. This year, the February stats just came out, and I would ask that you would take a look at the Pasadena website. About 44 crimes occurred in your district this last month in February. That involves all Part 1 crimes, so it's burglary, robbery, rapes, those kinds of things. There were no homicides. There were a few robberies and those kinds of things as well. But we. So with respect to the crimes in your district, like I said, so last month in February, there were about 44 crimes. However, I wanted to go back a little bit historically so I could put that into context for you. From March of 2017 to March of this year, 2018, there were about, in total, 72 calls in and around the Prescott Street area. Those calls generated mostly about burglary alarm calls, family calls, miscellaneous, impounded vehicles, those kinds of things as well. Most of those are quality of life issues that the Pasadena Police Department deals with on a general basis. More specifically, though, over the last couple of months, the Pasadena Police Department has responded to precisely 10 burglary calls on the Prescott block. So apparently there's a neighbor that has an alarm that's moderately active, and we responded to that call, or we responded to those calls when the alarm is activated. We've also impounded 4 vehicles, and then we've had some interdepartmental assistance calls with like the Department of Mental Health for mental health issues when we responded to those areas as well. Of the 4 vehicles that we responded to, those vehicles were impounded. Some of them were stolen, some of them were just parked overnight, but ultimately we took those into custody. The second highest call in your neighborhood in Prescott is disturbances. So we responded to 8 family disturbances in that area. Whether they were domestic calls or there were arguments between couples or whatever the case was, the Pasadena police officers had to get there and to investigate that call as well. There were a group call, a group of a fight, domestic violence, and threatening disturbances called as well. The shots fired calls with respect to Prescott actually didn't occur on Prescott. They occurred in close proximity to your street. One was back on in the 500. So maybe if I can continue, if the audience will indulge me. I don't want to try to overspeak, but maybe if I can continue. The February 17th shooting at Los Robles and Prescott involved a car-to-car shooting. And what we know so far is that there were a group of Hispanic males that were in a car and engaged another group of Hispanic males, and there were shots that were exchanged between the two. Fortunately, nobody was injured in that incident on February 17th. Moreover, on March 3rd, however, there was a tragic situation when There was a 30-year-old female nurse of neurology who was at a party in the 1200 block of Los Robles. And while she was at this party, at least an unknown assailant at this time made their way covertly to the fence line surrounding the property. The best that we can determine, they put a pistol or a firearm over the fence line and they fired several rounds, striking the young lady, and she suffered critical injuries. She fortunately survived. She was quickly rendered first aid by a Pasadena police officer who started CPR on the young lady, and then ultimately the fire department took over and she was transported, and then they were able to sustain her life. So she's currently in critical condition. She can't speak to us yet. I won't be able to go into all of the facts, but I will tell you that there are some strong leads in that case that suggest that we hopefully would be able to solve that in very quick order. I would ask my community this, that if you have information about that shooting, could you please make it known to me or known to my investigators, or if you could make it known to Mr. Kennedy or any of his field representatives, I would be indebted to you because we are very close. We just need a few more facts so that we can try to put that case together. With respect to the guns themselves in our community, last year the Pasadena Police Department seized or otherwise surrendered from our community members about 286 guns. So far, year to date, ladies and gentlemen, we're at about 44 guns. And so the gun epidemic in our community is tremendous. I don't typically get into a discussion about the Second Amendment, but I would ask you this. If you are a gun owner, please make sure that your guns are locked and secured in a safe. And if you don't want your guns, please surrender those guns to the Pasadena Police Department so that I can have them destroyed. The guns that we take into custody are either destroyed or they go to court for evidence as it relates to our investigations. Last, in December 2016, my community, you might remember that we had a local gang war, for a lack of better terms. It involved street gang members from Duarte, from Altadena, and from Pasadena. And as a result of that conflict resulted in 3 homicides and 2 attempt homicides. So that shooting spree started in December 2016, and it concluded in February 2017. There was an extraordinary effort by the Pasadena Police Department robbery homicide team to really get down and investigate that. And I want to thank those community members that came forward and provided information for us anonymously or directly. Your efforts, your courageousness does not fall unnoticed. It doesn't fall on deaf ears. You might remember that following those investigations, we arrested 9 people that were responsible for those shootings. We're currently in preliminary hearing downtown Los Angeles. The investigators, along with the LA County Sheriffs, are engaged in the preliminary hearing, and at least my investigators feel that that hearing is going pretty well. So we do believe that those individuals will be ultimately held to answer. I know there are some folks from the Prescott area, and I think I engaged one gentleman in particular online. I would say that given the number of folks here, that I'm happy to meet with you separately or go over those issues individually. But maybe I'll conclude by saying what I started with, that your district is right in the area, kind of mid area of the crime. Yes, ma'am.
you. It happened to me. I'm very peaceful, and I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you.
So that I could bring this to your attention. The officers that came were Officer Abraham and I think it's Bella Vasquez, but they came twice. Thank you. They came twice. And it's up to us to start doing something for the people who call the police unnecessarily. They got me banned from a Ralph's and Starbucks. I had to fast for 40 days and 40 nights from Starbucks because I was just in there trying to get hot cocoa. I've taught school for over 30 years, and you're not going to tell me it's panhandling because I have a special Starbucks card that I simply ask people to bless me with something on my card, and escalated to the point where you call police and have me in tears, knowing that I'm living from a vehicle. And she knew this, the security guard, and then to put the icing on the cake. So what can you do about it?
Thank you, ma'am.
The question, so can you find out who this security guard is and the police officers? What did she tell them that made Officer Abraham come back the second time so hostile to me, telling me that my patience is wearing out and making me leave, knowing that I have a disability placard?
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for your remarks and for your question. We are in discussion with the security guards at the Vallarta Market. In part, I am concerned because they are armed security. In the state of California, armed security individuals must go through a class, through a BSIS. It's an state institution that requires a certain level of training, a certain level of competency. But I have that concern. Vallarta Market, as I understand it, does have on practice, or Ralph's, they do have armed securities, so that we'll try to deal with those as well. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask three individuals, recognize three individuals. And the reason I'm only recognizing three additional individuals because we still have several presentations that are important to folks who came tonight. And one of the issues is Vallarta Markets and the parking issue around Vallarta. So I'm going to recognize no more than three additional folks, if you just raise your hand.
You know, the mic, I don't even need your mic. I just want to ask you, Chief Sanchez, out of 7 of those 10 waiver forms that Vasquez Gordikian had, that allowed Vasquez Gordikian to get those guns quicker than a 10-day waiting period, why did you sign off on those waivers, and why was it so important? What was the urgency for those guns to be out on the streets?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. I think that's a fair question. The 10-day waiver gun letter program.
Please.
At the Pasadena Police Department really is codified by law in the state of California. And the premise of the law says that a bona fide law enforcement officer can ask for a 10-day waiver so that they can purchase a gun the same day that they request the gun. The assumption is that they're a police officer already in good standing. We do criminal background checks for the letter. We run checks on the officers to make sure that they weren't convicted, and unbeknownst to the police department, that they weren't convicted for a domestic violence crime or some other crime that would make them ineligible to carry a gun. Also, what's important to know, and I can't go too far into the Gordikian matter because, as you well know, there was an indictment handed down by the AUSA, the United States Attorney General, on Vasquez Gordikian last Friday. And with
please.
With respect, so I can't go into that too deep. What I can tell you is that it is a legal and authorized format to sign those letters. There were not a lot of letters signed. The program itself has been suspended. So since last February, there have been no gun letters issued, and my intent is not to renew the program. So if an officer wants a a gun letter, if an officer wants to purchase a gun, then they're going to have to wait 10 days, just like you would have to wait, and they're going to have to go to a local gun store or wherever they go to purchase that gun. What's also very important, though, and I think Jasmine asked a fair question, but I think what's also very important here is that when the search warrant was served last year at his home, he was immediately put on leave, paid leave, because of the protocols that I'm sometimes restricted by, not sometimes, the protocols that I'm restricted by, the laws, don't allow me to suspend his property right to compensation or suspend his property right to employment without what is called a scaly hearing. I won't bore you with that, but that essentially is the law by nature that I must comply with. We were in constant discussion with the AUSA about this case.
Chief, that's too much detail for us. A young lady here in the back here has a question.
Hi, Police Chief Sanchez. I'm Naja. I have a question. I work at Avison Elementary School, one of the elementary schools here in Pasadena. And so today we were just on lockdown for an incident that happened in Altadena. So I want to know what the Pasadena Police Department is doing to protect our schools and to make sure that they're a lot safer than they are.
Thank you. Chief.
Thank you for sharing that. And just so that I understand, ma'am, that the school, the lockdown was in Altadena, and the question is what are we doing in Pasadena to make sure that we might not experience something similar? Well, thank you for that question, ladies and gentlemen. I don't need to tell you what a scourge, how terrible it is that we're involved in active shooters in our community. At our schools, and even most recently in our churches. We have to figure this out as a community, as a society, as we go forward and we discuss these issues about background checks and Second Amendment rights and those kinds of things. And there's a lot of smart people in this room that might have that information. The truth is this, is that we can train our administrators, we can train our teachers, much like our young lady, our community member that has shared with us this evening. We can train you to do those kinds of things. My great frustration is this, is that when we make presentations to learning institutions, or to private sector, or to community groups, we're working with Pastor Gene Birch and the CCC so that we can bring, believe this or not, we can bring active shooter to our churches. What do our pastors do if they're standing up in the middle of Sunday church service and somebody starts with an active shooter scenario? My frustration is, the difficulty is that oftentimes the entity, the persons responsible for dictating the philosophy at the school, at the church, at the business, won't land on a philosophical decision about how their employees or how their teachers or how their students should engage that. So that makes it a little bit difficult. We give you the technical skills, but I will tell you from the bottom of my heart, ladies and gentlemen, I absolutely don't believe, and you will hear this publicly more than once, I do not believe we should be arming our teachers. No, it's ridiculous. I think putting another gun in our community, putting another gun in our church, putting another gun in our school makes it difficult. It makes it very difficult. I'm happy to circle back around with you for specifics, but there are specific things that we can arm you with, information that we can give you so that you're better prepared.
Chief, I asked the lieutenant to provide his business card, and also asked Jana West to provide a business card to the teacher. Here we have a question for one of our young people.
Oh, no touching? Oh, okay, well, that's something. Actually, I have two questions since we are only going to have a couple of space for community dialogue. Well, then one, just for you. If we have programs and you're saying that the philosophy needs to come from head, if the philosophy is coming from you on this specific issue, how are officers handling 5150 cases, and how are officers handling any sort of case that's dispatched for mental issues? Because I've had some of your officers stand in my house and tell me that I was being dramatic in a suicidal episode. So, and they were referring me to see a female doctor, because I don't know what type of third-party organization you guys use for outreach, but it isn't enough that the cops don't know. They don't need to call a third party. They should be well-equipped to handle people on the spot if they're gonna be the ones who are being called.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that's a fair question. Just in general, I don't want to make the assumption, if I might just take a minute to explain what 5150 is. If 50... Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I'll get there. So the 5150 Welfare and Institution Code gives a law enforcement officer the authority to apply for a hold. It's based on 3 key areas. It's based on gravely disabled, so we could use it, say, for a homeless person that might have some physical things that are wrong with them, that are sleeping or camping in the park. Gravely disabled, a danger to yourself or a danger to others. Law enforcement officers go through a modest amount of training, not a lot. They're not clinicians. They're not professionals as it relates to mental health issues. But they do receive additional training. Last year, through the district attorney's office, we sent our officers to mental health evaluation. I've sent my officers to be exposed to bipolar disorder, to schizophrenia, and those kinds of things. But if you can imagine for a moment how difficult it is, and as our young community member explained, in the throes of all this information that's coming at the officer, she's trying to communicate, or somebody's trying to communicate to the officers themselves, they're trying to evaluate it. A clinician, and I'm sure there's clinicians in the room, a clinician under calm circumstances, oftentimes it takes a very long time to diagnose or otherwise provide services for that individual. We have the HOPE team, and the HOPE team you might be very familiar with. The HOPE team is an officer. The HOPE team is an officer and a mental health clinician that work together in partnership so that they can try to make that correct assessment. They're not always available. I only have 3 HOPE officers, and oftentimes they're embroiled in issues with homelessness, and they might not be available for you at the critical time, because Murphy's Law suggests that you're going to call me at 2 in the morning with that kind of mental health episode. Also, I might add, though, the officers do receive that basic training, and the notion here is to make sure that we safeguard the person who's calling us, safeguard their family as well, and then try to get the resources to that individual. There oftentimes is a person who's experiencing a mental health episode that's seeing a clinician or they're seeing a doctor. And we should make an effort to engage that clinician or doctor so that you're most comfortable with that person, since then you already know them. But oftentimes that clinician or that doctor isn't available early in the morning, so the officer must do the best they can and take the individual, if they're under a 5150 custody hold, take them to a nearby local center that's open 24/7, and there are a few of them that would provide mental health assistance.
Let's give our chief a round of applause. No, that was the last one. Thank you, Chief. What do you need, Chief? Oh, sorry. Okay, now I would like to ask many of you came tonight because there were concerns about Vallarta Market and the difficulty of parking in the neighborhood around Vallarta. So I'd like to ask representatives of Vallarta to share some improvements that they have made. First of all, I'd like to thank Vallarta for being a part of our community. It's an extraordinary full-service supermarket in our community. And it was really beautiful that they would come to our neighborhood and put in such a world-class market. So I'd like to invite a representative from Vallarta Markets here with us today. And if you would stand, I'd greatly appreciate it. Is Rick Castillo, the Director of Marketing. Rick? John Marquez, or Marquis, Consultant and former CFO. Sammy Vasquez. Sammy? He is the District Manager and Angelo Cruz, the store director. So Angelo, stand up so they can see you. This is the guy to see if there's any problems at the market. Angelo, please come on up.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to come. My name is John Marquis, I answered anything. And we have had the store here now for, it opened late November. Can you hear me now? Is that better? When we open a store of this size, we hire a lot of people, and because there is a lot of turnover early on when you open the store. People think they want to work for a supermarket and then discover it's retail is not necessarily a great job. And for some people love it, like Angelo. Others, like me, I couldn't do it. So we get some turnover. We started this store, we had 320 employees. And, I'm sorry? 320 employees. It is now down to 220, which is about what the store will continue to employ. When we opened the store, you have a lot of brand new employees. Training is an ongoing issue for us, as for many people, and we work very hard at it. We have implemented some policies to try to get our employees off of the streets or onto commercial streets. So when the first employees come into the store about 3:30 in the morning, and we have about 5 at that point, by 7 o'clock, we've got about 20 people working in the store. At about 7 o'clock, another 30 people or so come in, and by 10 o'clock or so, we will have approximately 90 people in the store. Those people that come early leave, they're replaced in the midday by a crew, and then some more are replaced about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Store closes at 10. So we have provided for the employees 25 spaces behind the store. We have a couple of other spaces next to the store. We are encouraging the employees to park along Orange Grove and the street that runs behind the post office. You know where the post office is over there. So there's usually parking on the commercial side of that block, and that's where the employees are supposed to park. We do have a few that park in the parking lot, but we hope that, how many people here have been in the store? Great! That's great. That's right? Oh, okay, just one second. I've been, no. We took over an existing store. Why did we take over the store? You would have to talk to the owner of the shopping center about that.
It's not fair for your employee themselves to have to park on the street. Why treat them like that?
We are also, to address your question, we're also negotiating.
So wait, let me, it's a legitimate question. So there was an existing footprint that Vallarta took over. When Vaughn's was at the mark, was in that particular space, that Vaughn's at the beginning was the #1 Vaughn's in the state of California in terms of sales. Then all of us saw a precipitous decrease in quality. So Vallarta came in and invested approximately, how many million? About $5 million renovating the store, opening it up and making it really what I consider a world-class store. But they did not have an opportunity to change the parking. The parking was already there, the footprint, the market, in terms of that box was already there. The community that's been talking to me, the folks who are concerned are saying that they're taking up the spaces for the residents. And so Vallarta has responded by making contact with other places right in the area that can park their employees. And one of those entities, I don't know if they're represented here tonight, is New Revelation Missionary Baptist Church. Their excess parking, that they would have some of their employees park there. So that is a direct response to all of those folks who sent me numerous emails, knocked on my door, came up to my house, and told me to help fix it. So they have responded, but it is difficult because in my view, I'm not a planner, but in my view, there needed to be more parking from the beginning. And they found themselves in a very positive way meeting a need in our community by providing a quality market. No one can deny it. It is as nice as any market in Beverly Hills. We have a nice market, and we want it to work. We want it to work. So we want to work with Vallarta. We want to work with Vallarta, and we want the city manager and all the executive staff in his department to help them find the adequate parking, so as a resident, we won't be here saying fix the parking. They've committed to fix it. I believe they're going to fix it. Are there any questions that you would like to direct related to the market that has not been covered? And I'd like to give you that opportunity to ask that question. So first, I'm going to recognize the young lady here, recognize the young lady there, and the young man there. That's 3 questions. And only because you're 88 years old, we'll recognize you.
Quick question. I'm wondering how many full-time employees are working at Vallarta, because perhaps with so many part-time employees that you're doubling the number of employees, therefore you're doubling the number of cars. I'm not sure what the number is, so perhaps you can compare the ratio from Vaughn's, if you can, or Vallarta Market. Thank you.
One of the strengths of Vallarta is we try to offer full-time employment to as many people as possible. A lot of supermarkets get by on part-time, and you can't live on 20 hours a week. So we try to give our employees 40 hours a week. And as I said earlier, at the most at any one time, there'll be about 90 employees in the store.
Okay.
I wouldn't know exactly for that store, but generally it runs about 75 to 80% full-time.
Second question.
I heard that your loss prevention officers manhandled an African-American man and then charged him with strong arm robbery for taking a bag of Cheetos. Is that how you treat the customers who come for a bag of Cheetos? And it was a felony charge.
Thank you.
Not at all. We do not try to harass anyone, and everyone is welcome to come to the store. I'm not challenging what you're saying, but we do try to encourage people to shop responsibly and to enjoy the store. I will be glad to chat with the store director.
So I have shopped at your store, and I know you have an organic vegetable section and fruit section, and that's good. What are your plans to expanding that section so there's more choices?
Good question. We are working on that. I won't bore you, but we opened our own warehouse about 3 years ago, and slowly with the new stores, we're bringing in more organics. I expect to see at least double what we have now in the next year.
Next question.
I have shopped at the store, enjoyed the store, but I must make a request. Some of the
Why don't you identify yourself, young lady?
My name is Mildred Hawkins, and I live in Heritage Square. Okay. Been a commissioner of the city of Pasadena for 12 years. Now, I have enjoyed that store, but they've got to be careful. Some of the food in the store has made people sick. And I bought a half of a rotisserie chicken. It was so salty, I had to throw it away. When I went back to tell it to the manager, he says, well, I don't know why, it's all the same recipe. But the point is, he didn't think it was salty. I thought it was. How do you get around something like that?
Thank you.
My response is that everything that we sell fresh in the store like that, one of the reasons people are in the store early is we bake everything in the store except the pies and the cakes. Everything is fresh. All the chicken is cooked there on site every day. And like everything else, we have a training issue, especially in a new store, with people using the right amount of spices. We are not McDonald's. And at McDonald's, if you want a hamburger that's going to be the same every time, you're going to get it at McDonald's. If you want something that's freshly made by a human being on the spot, there's going to be some variable issues, yes. And we're trying to, I'm getting old, we're trying to train our people as well as possible to make it as consistent as possible.
One last question.
Well, I heard some people from the store, I guess called the parking patrol, and some people in the neighborhood were getting tickets on their car, and it was said that I guess the cars were there too many days, and they needed that parking space for your employees.
Thank you.
Angelo, do you want to?
And people are getting tickets and 3-day notices for having their car parked on the street where they live. And it was said that, I guess the parking guy had said that somebody from the store said they need the space for your employees to park.
Let me address the question.
Can I address it too?
You wouldn't have this knowledge that I have. Wait. Okay. So in the city of Pasadena, as you know, you cannot park overnight. So without a sticker or some kind of requirement, maybe handicap or a physical disability, and it's noted by the state of California. So it would be difficult for an employee of Vallarta to say something negative about a specific car because our parking enforcement people are riding up and down all of the streets providing tickets for those folks who are in violation of the ordinance. Now, please.
All I wanted to say was, when we're done with this meeting, I will personally look into it and make sure it doesn't happen again, because it should I don't believe that it actually was one of our employees. I don't know why they would do that. I did drive the community this evening before we came to the meeting. There's lots of spots open on the street in the area. Yeah, and we certainly would not want to do that. That's not in our code of conduct.
So I would ask all of you to give a round of applause to Vallarta and all of their representatives who came tonight. Also, I'd like to ask. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to thank all of the speakers and the folks who asked questions tonight. That's really democracy, whether you like it or not, meaning whether you like the question or not. People have a right to voice their concerns, and I always, as one council member and the vice mayor of the city, want to give people that opportunity. I just like to do it in an orderly manner if I can. Now, I'd like all of the employees of the city of Pasadena to come forward. I know they didn't expect me to do this, but I want my residents, my neighbors to be able to see you. I mean, literally, come forward. Come on. Come on, please. City of Pasadena. The employees of the city of Pasadena, Lola Osborne in the city manager's office, Horace Wormley, the director of human services and recreation. All of you, come on. Let the folks see ya. Jana West, the district liaison. former employees of the city of Pasadena that I worked with, Jarvis Emerson, who ran our parks, Jackie Robinson Center, our ambassadors, our youth ambassadors, all these beautiful young people. A recent hire of the city of Pasadena, in what department? Oh, you're in the city attorney's office. Okay, all right. Watch out, don't do nothing wrong. She'll be reporting you. And then Roberto Alvarez, a young man who is a recent graduate. What school? Where did you graduate from? Arizona State. Give him a round of applause. He's from the neighborhood, lives on Sunset, and he volunteers in my office. Any other employees of the city of Pasadena? Please give them all a round of applause. Now, it got a little warm up in here, but that's how it rolls. It's going to get warm sometimes. But I want to end on a light note before I call up the pastor to give us a closing prayer. In the Pasadena Library, thank you all. In the Pasadena Library, March 22nd, was it? Yep, February 22nd. What was it? No. February 22nd, we had an unveiling of a portrait or painting that pays tribute to our former president. That painting is pretty huge. It's the size of approximately, I shouldn't say it like this, but it's big. It's like a California king. And it's in our humanities wing of the Pasadena Main Library on Walnut. And I'd invite all of you to take the time to go look at that piece of work that was produced by artists from Cannes, France. And it's an extraordinary piece. I have some of the signed programs from that event, and I'd be happy to provide them to you if you would like them. And lastly, it was posted on social media. I'm sorry. I'll make sure that doesn't happen the next time. Where's the program? Anybody give me a program, please? Okay, got it. Yes, sir. No. We're ready to wrap up. Would anyone love to indulge this resident for 1 minute? Okay, come on up. You have a positive story?
I worked very hard for, my name is Kevin Midrak. I worked very hard for 14 years for the city of Los Angeles and the state to save some money and put down 20% to buy a house in Pasadena. I moved from Santa Monica. It was very expensive and very loud. So I picked Pasadena for quiet and peace. For 8 years, it's going to be 8 years in 2 days in Pasadena, paying taxes. I don't sleep at night. I will not raise my kids in that neighborhood because of the Jackie Robinson Park. What happened is Jackie Robinson is resting in peace, looking down at us, and I'm sure he's ashamed of the park having his name. Why? Because I called the police for disturbance all night, using the N-word, loud music, the F word, beating up women. I called the police from 9:45 p.m. until 11:30. They didn't come. Yes. Why? Because I bought a house and I'm trying to make an impact on the park. An impact by being here and having to tell you I have a problem.
So I would say that we'd like to get his information. And oh, you got it. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. I'll make sure. So, okay, I got it. Thank you. Well, I try to be inclusive. So I'd like to first respond by saying I'll make sure the appropriate city departments respond to you. I'd ask that the city manager provide you with his business card. No. Excuse me. I grew up in this community. We're going to get the $3 million. No, I'm telling you, I grew up in this community. We're going to get the $3 million for the pool. For the pool. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. Oh, got it. I thought you meant I can't get my $3 million. No. Got it. Okay, cool. I would like to invite Marcelo Alvarado, pastor of the Dunamis Church, to close us out in prayer. Welcome. Bualam Busalup, can you please introduce your committee? I was derelict. I would like to invite Bualam Busalup, who is heading the ad hoc committee of Sister City, and we're looking for a sister city in Africa. And members of the committee came out specifically because we're on our way to Dakar, Senegal. So I'd like you to introduce each one of the members by name and have them come up real quick before we close out in prayer. Can you quickly?
Raquel London, Jim Berry, Gary Moody, I think a couple of them are missing. Yes, as the Vice Mayor has said, on the 22nd of March, 21st of March, God willing, we'll be traveling to Dakar, Senegal, to spend about 10 days, return on the 2nd of April, to conduct a fact-finding mission to bring back enough information to build a case so that we can hopefully convince the City Council that Dakar is worthy to be a sister city of Pasadena. And we'd like to take your greetings, if you would, to the city of Dakar. And we will report when we come back. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the committee.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and everything. And why not let's have a word of prayer, because I know you have good ideas, good suggestions, good questions, a good answer. Remember, He loves us and He wants to make us one, regardless of races or language. But the important thing is the community. Remember this. No, it's not important your achievements. God knows your heart. If you have a good heart, you're going to bless our community. I think that we are here tonight. Why not let's have a word of prayer that we can say, Lord, bless our city. Heavenly Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you, Father, for the Vice President, John Kennedy, Lord, and all the staff that they share about the concern from the city, Father. But please, Father, give a love for each other, Lord Jesus. Father, that we can help each other, Lord. That we can encourage each other, Lord. Please, we ask you blessing, Father, for everybody here, Father. Every father and mother and children, Lord Jesus. Please, Father, make us one, Lord. Make us one, Father, that we can work together in order our Pasadena going to be a success and bless families and children, Father, and the youth guy, Father, in the safe community, Father. Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful evening. In Jesus' name, Father, we ask this. Amen. Have a good night. God bless.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Have a safe travel to wherever you're going, home, dinner, and I'll see you back in about a month and a half at our next community meeting. Thank you.